Welcome back to the show. If you're a fan of college athletics, you don't need me to tell you that the landscape does not look like it used to. With conference realignment, name, image, and likeness, and the concept of amateur student athletes, it's all changed. It's just not what it once was. And it's shifted how many of us view college sports. Now, the NCAA is the governing body. We all know that. The NCAA stands for National Collegiate Athletic Association. It's a nonprofit organization. They govern more than 1,100 schools. It's been around for 120 years, going all the way back to 1906. And I imagine that most of our listeners can remember in the early 1970s when the NCAA developed what is now a three-division system. Division I for the biggest schools or universities, then you had Division II, then Division III. And under current NCAA rules, Divisions I and II are able to offer athletic scholarships to students. Division III schools do not offer athletic scholarships. Now, the NCAA is a billion-dollar enterprise. And years ago, the perks that were provided to student athletes, in addition to their scholarships, they were largely kept under the table. But in today's world, those benefits aren't really a secret anymore. Now, the NCAA does have the ability to restrict the types of benefits and really the level of compensation that athletes receive directly, right? They have money directly coming from the schools. In fact, in 2021, we talked about it on this show, the U.S. Supreme Court unanimously ruled that some of the restrictions placed on student athletes were in violation of U.S. antitrust law. Then in May of 2024, the NCAA settled a lawsuit which allowed its member institutions to pay Division I athletes. Now, I don't think there's a lot of controversy in saying that there needs to be structure within the NCAA. The question really is, what should college athletics look like moving forward? Amateurism isn't really the model anymore, but the question is, how long should athletes be able to compete? The easy answer, when they're in school. And for those of us who spent 4, maybe 5 years in college, that's easy. But what about beyond that? The concept of redshirting in college sports, that's where you have an athlete who sits out from official competition to preserve eligibility. Now, an athlete can still practice and attend school, but they're not able to play in games. I think most of us know about that. And there are, of course, medical redshirts, right? Athletes suffer a season-ending injury. That typically has to happen in the first half of a season. As long as they haven't participated in 30% of competitions, like 30% or less, then they could get that season back. But there are specific waivers where we've seen athletes apply for and then be granted additional years of eligibility beyond that. Again, in the past, before things got really out of control, an athlete would routinely have 5 years of eligibility to play 4 seasons. Just this week, though, the NCAA proposed a concept that, if adopted, would permit athletes up to 5 years of eligibility, and then that's it. On Monday, Division I Board of Directors directed the Division I Cabinet to advance a concept that, if adopted, would permit those athletes 5 years of eligibility. And that rule change, of course, wouldn't apply to the current athletes who are competing, but in the future. According to Scott Dochterman, he wrote a story in The Athletic, and he talked to Virginia Tech president and NCAA board chairman Tim Sands, who said, quote, "The time is now to reform the period of eligibility rules to provide Division I student athletes and our schools clear and consistent standards that align with current college athletes' experiences." According to his story, the athlete's eligibility timeline begins with the academic year after they turn 19 or after they graduate from high school, whichever would happen first. Now, this proposal also requires schools to cover tuition for athletes to finish their education for up to 10 years should they leave the institution before completing a degree. Michigan State football player and board member Sam Edwards said in a news release, quote, "In addition to clearly defining an age range of college players, it allows student athletes to compete over the entirety of their eligibility period." Again, the story from Scott Dochterman in The Athletic. Encourage you to read it. Now, the 20-member Division I cabinet that has decision-making power, keep in mind, they will discuss this topic further at its May 22nd meeting, and obviously we'll see where it goes from there. SportsCaster's Noah Shemami from Full Sail University provided this commentary.
College sports could be heading toward one of its biggest changes in decades, and it all centers around one question: How long should an athlete actually be eligible to play? A new push involving the NCAA and executive order from Donald Trump could completely reshape eligibility rules, potentially eliminating red shirts and replacing them with a 5 year strict clock. Right now, the system is flexible. Athletes typically get 4 years of eligibility over a 5 year window, but red shirts, injury waivers, and transfer rules have stretched that timeline. In some cases, players have stayed in college for 6, 7, even pushing towards 9 years. Under this new proposal, that flexibility could disappear. The idea is simple. Every athlete gets a 5 year window to compete starting at age 19 or after high school graduation, whichever comes first. No more traditional red shirts, no more stacking extra years through waivers, just 5 years, period. The push for this change comes after growing frustration with how complicated and inconsistent the current system has become. Reports from front office sports and others pointed to a need for a cleaner, more predictable structures. And even Charlie Baker has supported simplifying eligibility, saying the systems should be better and they should reflect what most people are looking for now: clarity. But this isn't happening in a vacuum. The rise of NIL, name, image, and likeness, has completely changed the landscape of college athletics. Athletes can now make a significant amount of money while staying in school, which has led some to delay going pro. Combine that with the transfer portal and existing eligibility loopholes, the system has become increasingly chaotic. This new rule is an attempt to rein that in, creating a more structured timeline for every athlete. But here's where things get very complicated. First, what happens to current players? If this rule goes into effect soon, there's still no clear answer on whether athletes already deep into their careers would gain an extra eligibility or flat out lose it. Second, legal challenges. We've already seen multiple athletes take the NCAA to court over eligibility limits, including high profile cases like Vanderbilt quarterback Diego Pavia, with NIL money now in play. Restricting eligibility could be viewed as restricting an athlete's ability to earn, opening the door for even more lawsuits. And then there's the human side. Redshirting has long been a key part of college sports. It allows athletes to develop physically, recover from injuries, and adjust to the speed of the game. Removing it could fundamentally change how programs build rosters, develop talent, and also manage careers. So while the idea sounds simple, 5 years, no exceptions, the ripple effects could be massive. It could bring structure, but take away flexibility. It could create fairness, but spark new legal battles. And it raises a bigger question: what should college sports look like in the NIL era? For now, the proposal is still being discussed with no final decision yet. But one thing is clear: the future of eligibility in college sports is on the table. And whatever comes next could redefine an athlete's experience for years to come. I'm Noah Shemami, and this is Open Mic from SportsCaster.
Did you know that the record for the longest college football career in FBS history belongs to former Miami Hurricanes tight end Cam McCormick? Now, he played in his 9th season in 2024. Started his career in 2016 at Oregon, had a bunch of injury-shortened seasons, and then, of course, had the extra COVID-19 eligibility year. He was 26 when he stopped playing college football. Will the NCAA proposal, this new proposal of a 5-year window, gain some momentum? We're going to find out. Again, the next meeting to discuss this topic will take place at the end of May, but it's certainly a story that we will continue to follow. When we come back, we go one-on-one with the incomparable public address announcer of the Pistons, John Mason. Stick around. You're listening to Open Mic.